Hi guys, Jane here, and today I wanted to do my 5 tips for a successful Nanowrimo. If this is your first video, Nanowrimo starts in November, and it is when we try to write a 50,000 word novel in 1 month. It's doable, but it's hard. I do want to apologize for the quality of sound. I am in the library recording, and there's other people in nearby rooms that are also studying and probably recording things, and you can probably hear them because the walls are fairly, thin. But this was the only day I could get in here to record because of busy life stuff. So, the first tip, and I think the most important, is to plan what you're going to write before each writing session. And I do this in my daily writing anyway, which is to have an idea of what your scene is when you go in. So if you've taken my advice so far, you have some kind of plot outline or something that you're following. Before you sit down to write, you should have an idea of what the scene is, who's in it, what they're talking about, and what they're doing. And you don't have to know every single little detail, but knowing the basics of what you're going to write, and especially if you've ran through it in your head a few times, can really help you make the most of a writing session. If you're like me and you have a busy life, you don't want to spend time staring at the screen. You want all of the time sitting in front of your device to be typing. You don't want to have to look at the screen and go, where am I going? What am I doing? What do they say? What am I trying to do? No, you just want to get in there and, he said this, she said this is what they did, this is what this looked like. Be prepared. Be prepared. The more prepared you are, the more words you can get out at a time. And the more words you can get out at a time, the more likely you are to stay on task, because you don't want multiple days of only 500 words, because it's really hard to catch up if you get behind. So planning before a writing session is number 1. Number 2, do not edit as you go. And I know this one is so hard for so many people. I don't follow this entirely, because if I see a misspelled word and I know it's misspelled, I will fix that, or if it's something in the last line I'm doing. But I'm not saying you should just edit and leave all your mistakes in there for word count purposes, although some people do. But what I am saying is, don't go back in your writing time and say, oh, maybe I should put this, oh, maybe this. Go with your gut instinct and move on, and you can edit later. That is one of the things that's nice about using the Neo. I showed that to you in my video of tools and tricks. And that is my little thing that looks like an electronic typewriter. Let me pull it out. It has a tiny screen, and so I can only see 4 lines, so I don't have that urge to go back and edit. So this is my Neo. It's amazing. I love it. Can't say enough about it, but I only can see 4 lines at a time. And so if it's on my screen and I see an error, I will go back and fix it. If it's not on my screen, I don't. Editing is for after Nano. You don't need to edit in the midst. If you think of something that is an issue, make yourself a little note in parentheses, color it, maybe, move on. Don't want to stop and edit. Number 3, write every day. Now, November is a busy month, and that may not be possible. So plan to write every day, and if you miss 1 or 2 days, it's not the end of the world. But one of the challenges with Nanowrimo is it's easy to get behind. You're trying to write just over 1,600 words a day. And so if you are behind, if you miss a day, then the next day you have to write 3,000 plus words. And that's a big difference. 1,600 is very easy, very doable. 3,000 starting to look scary, miss more than that in a row. And it's almost impossible to catch up. So plan to write every day. And if you miss a day, understand that catching up is going to be a bit of a challenge. Even if you don't hit your word count, even if you don't get to 1,600 every day, even if you get 600, that's better than, no progress at all. And finding time to write is hard. I'm a busy mom. I don't know that I'm going to find time every day to write, but I'm certainly going to try. Write in the mornings when you first get up, write for 15 minutes before bed. Write in sprints. Lots of people do sprints. They'll set a timer and say, I'm going to write for 15 minutes. And, you can almost any day, you can find 15 minutes to put in. And again, you may not hit your ultimate word count goal, but you're making progress. And at the end, even if you're a little short, you've still got most of a novel. And that's what we're really shooting for with Nanowrimo. The next one is don't get discouraged. And this I think is hard. I was in a writers group, physical writers group, where we were talking about Nanowrimo. And there were a lot of people who were kind of scared to do it because they are like, well, I don't know if I can do it. And here's the thing, you're not competing with anybody but yourself in Nanowrimo. It's okay if you don't complete the 50,000 words. You had more than you started with, and that's kind of the point. I do think that it's easy to get discouraged if you miss a couple days or get behind in your words, but just keep pushing. Just get as close to the 50,000 as you can, and it's okay if you're not perfect. And it's okay if the words aren't perfect. As a matter of fact, it's okay if the words are crap, because you're going to have to go back and revise it anyway. Nobody ever takes a NaNoWriMo written draft and then sends it to an agent. You're going to need revision. This is step one in a process. And don't forget that as you go. Don't strive for perfection. Don't strive for, killing it word count. Do your best and know that that will be enough. I mean, December, you can continue your story if you didn't get all your 50,000 words, or if you didn't get a complete novel. You can do your edits in November or December. November is not a magical month. It's something that we do to support each other, and it's a fun game to play with yourself. So don't feel like if you mess it up, you're a terrible person, you're never going to be a writer. Don't let yourself talk negative to yourself, because it's just for fun. Do what you can, write as many words as you can, try not to get discouraged, but, there's always December. The idea is to get you started on your writing journey and to get as much of your first novel written, or novel, maybe not be your first, get as much of your novel written as possible. And the last one is have a support system. I am so fortunate. I'm part of a local writers group. I'm also part of several online groups, and I have a brother who's a writer and several friends who are writers too. So I have lots of support and totally have the people that I can message and be like, oh my gosh, Nano is kicking my butt. If you don't have that, it's a good thing to have. So right now, if you know you don't have people in your life who you can talk to about NaNoWriMo, I would join some online groups and try to make some friends before Nano starts, and maybe an accountability partner. Pick one or two people who are comfortable with it and, exchange. How's Nano going? Are you struggling? Are you having a good time? Are you stuck in a part of your story? There's so many things that can happen with NaNoWriMo, and having at least one buddy is huge. I'm on Nano, and I'm going to put my link beneath if you want to friend me on NaNoWriMo. And I'm happy to talk to anybody, talk you through the complications of Nano, and commiserate with you when you have a scene that is just not going, or you realize that you have written 30,000 words and you have to change everything about the beginning of your book, and you literally can't, so you have to pretend you did and keep moving on. So yeah, have social support. That'll help you succeed in Nano. So those are my top 5 tips for surviving Nano. Some lesser tips that I've heard, and I don't necessarily agree with all of these, but I'm going to give them to you anyway, are number 1, always have food and drink with you when you are sitting down to write, so that you can get through the racy marathon part of it. If you're writing for a huge long writing session, that's probably not a bad idea. For me, I find that food and drinks distract me, plus they get messy on my keyboard. So if I'm writing for more than 2 hours, I will take a break and go to the kitchen and eat. But generally, I don't think it's a great idea to have candy and cookies and sodas and stuff by the computer, or even Gatorade and water. A water bottle by the computer is probably not a big deal. But I wouldn't go overboard with the snacks. But definitely make sure you're taking breaks to drink and eat and stay hydrated. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint, so take care of yourself. Don't go without massive amounts of sleep. Make sure you're getting sleep in there. Just general, take care of yourself. You don't want to get sick and burn out just because of nano. Another tip that I'm not sure I love is, but some people it really works good for, is to use the same pen and notebook, machine, whatever, to write with. That is probably a lot more useful earlier in your journey. I've been doing this for a while. I can literally write with any pen in the world. If it is a pen and it writes, I can use it. But if you think that having the same pen every day will help put you in the mood or in the mode, do it. If that works for you. It doesn't work for me. I do use my Neo a lot, and that is great. But I can type on that. I can type on my computer. I can handwrite. I think as you get more comfortable with writing, it's easier to get in the zone. But if you're fairly new, it's totally okay to have a certain setting that triggers your brain to say, okay, this is writing time. Similarly, I've heard people make a playlist if you are the kind of person who needs music to write. Creating some kind of playlist beforehand that has to do with the themes of your story can be really helpful. I don't tend to write to music, but again, I've been doing this for a while, and I have written to music before. I just, usually when I'm having the time to write, I don't have time to get into an environment, okay? I don't have the ability and the luxury of getting everything in a setting. I'm sitting down, turning on my Neo, typing out stuff while the kids are in their activity at school. I mean, like, their after school activity, typing when I can, typing on my lunch break at work. That's the kind of thing I'm doing to get my stuff in because I'm very busy. But especially if you're newer and still trying to get into the mode more easily, I can generally sit down and be like, writing mode, let's go. But that takes work and practice. So if you are newer, having a playlist, having a pen that you use, anything that triggers your mind to go, this is what we're doing. I wouldn't have anything too distracting and loud, and maybe limit the lyrics. I did write my very first, second, singing the last song. I did write listening to a lot of Peter, Paul and Mary and Marilyn Manson. Don't ask, it was a weird combo, but that was very representative to me of what I was writing. But after my second book, I didn't really use music too much because I find it distracting and or I don't have time for it. So I'm trying to think if there's any other tips that I've heard that I didn't love. I think that's it. Again, the big thing is to do what works. Oh, one other. Have rewards every few thousand words. So if you get to your word count for the day, give yourself a treat. Maybe a Hershey's Kiss, or maybe, watching your favorite program. Whatever it is you need, dangle a carrot in front of your nose. I think that can be helpful. One of the challenges is, though, that I feel like the writing is kind of the carrot. You have this completed novel at the end. So I'm not sure that dangling a treat or a movie in front of your face is the best way to get your word count done. Plus, you can totally cheat and be like, I don't feel like doing this. I'm just going to eat my piece of candy. So if that works for you and if it's a motivator, do it. If not, I don't personally use it, but for some people I can see where that would be really, really beneficial. The last thing that I've heard, and for me, I'm kind of mixed feelings about this, but if it works for you, do it. And that is to have some kind of totem. Now, I am going to try to explain this as well as I can since I don't actually do it. But it's to have a visual something. Like if you write fantasy, maybe a little plastic dragon that you set near your computer and that you always have when you write to help keep you inspired. If you are writing fantasy, maybe a little spaceship to put beside your computer to look at and keep you focused, and just to kind of keep you in the zone. The closest thing I have to that is I generally buy covers for books fairly early on the process once I know the title name. You could create a book cover and have that to look at to help you stay motivated. But again, that may help you. It may not. I don't personally use it generally. Like, I have later on doing second drafts, but not first drafting necessarily. And I tend to get covers and not figurines. But again, whatever it takes for you to get in the zone, for you to stay focused, for you to get that word count in, do it. And it's totally okay if the things that I'm saying sound quirky to you and you're like, I don't think so. Or if you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds like it would work. Try different things because you never know what's going to work until it does. And the other thing is your process will probably evolve. What worked last year for NaNoWriMo, if you participated, may not work this year, and what works this year may not work next year because we're all growing and changing. And the more you write, the stronger your writer muscles become. So the things that were harder to do in the beginning are easier. An example of this, just saying, is for a while, not recently, but for a while, I used to work out a lot. My kids were in preschool, and during their 2-hour preschool, I was at the gym. And when I first started it, like, I couldn't do anything. And then by the time that I quit going, I wasn't in great shape, but I definitely felt confident. I knew I could do stuff, and the stuff that when I first started was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? Became like every day. And writing is the same way. It's a muscle. You know, when you first start, it may be hard to get in the zone. You may need tricks like having the same pen and having a totem by your computer to make sure that you can get in that zone of writing and focus. But then hopefully as you get more mature in the process, it's easier to click over that author switch and be like, okay, we're going to sit, we're going to write, we're going to do this. All right, guys, I hope those tips have been helpful. If you have any tips or tricks that you'd like to leave them in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.